Monika, we got Todd on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Todd, so it was something interesting you said about your first deal was sort of like a mixed deal. Did you intend for it to be that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Monica. It wasn't. We weren't looking for necessarily a mixed use property like that had commercial store frontage on it. We were searching in the market for multifamily. The story behind it was, and it kind of goes to when I talk about this a lot about networking and building relationships in your market, is we had another property just up the street. And through owning that building and networking with other owners or brokers in that market, the gentleman who purchased, there was an old bank next to this building that they were purchasing and repurposing, and just started conversation with them. One day we were out at the property, and he mentioned, "Hey, I own an apartment building down here. Would you happen to be interested in it?"
Hey, I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different from everything else out there. I bring together new and aspiring investors on each and every episode and let the aspiring investors ask the questions that they need answered. And if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably have the same questions. So before you get to this episode that we have prepared for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Streamline Capital Group. Very excited for today's show. It's another one of our Ask the Expert episodes. We got two great guests on the line with us today, and you're going to get a lot of value from it. We got our expert investor, Todd Silance, and our aspiring investor, Monika House. So guys, welcome.
Brian, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys being here. And as is tradition, Todd, we're going to talk with you first. So go ahead, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, again, Brian, thanks for having me on the show today. Really looking forward to this. A little bit about myself. I've been in the real estate or investing full-time in real estate for about a little over 4 years now, but my journey didn't start there. Similar to, I think, a lot of your guests that when I listen to your show talk about, right? Yeah. They started in a different career and eventually progressed into real estate. And mine isn't too far off from that. I kind of took that path of coming out of school, going to college, and then out of college, got that corporate W-2 job, just what, everybody kind of, or at the time I thought that's the path, that's where I'm going to go. Yeah. And that's what I did. Got a job in the insurance industry and kind of continued there for a handful of years. But eventually what happened or kind of changed in my life was I got married. And at that point in time, when I got married after, a few years of marriage, my wife was an actuary, and we kind of looked at, hey, it's time to start a family. And with that, we really looked at where we wanted our life to go and kind of how we wanted to script those next couple years. And we decided that, maybe working in a W-2 or a corporate job may not allow us to kind of have that freedom, the freedom of time and financial freedom. And that's when we kind of decided to shift and pursue something different. But what I'll tell you is that real estate still was not even in the back of my mind at that point in time. And what we actually decided to do was open a business. And we said, hey, we're going to pursue maybe opening a business to achieve that when we start a family, that freedom of time and that financial freedom. And what we did, kind of explored out there of what type of business did we wanted to open and where did we want to go. And for us, being in insurance and my wife being in the financial services industry as an actuary, you probably can tell we're very kind of linear and like we want to plan and have things organized. And we came down to looking at franchises. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with franchises, but it's a proven concept. Think of Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, those type of things. And for us, systems were already built out. So we could go and open a business and have systems in place. And we just need to operate that and put the people in the right positions. And that's what we did. We decided to open an Anytime Fitness franchise or purchase an Anytime Fitness franchise and kind of dive head first. I will say being kind of young and naive probably helped us a little bit where we put all our money into that business and just said, hey, guess what? We're going to open the doors and it's going to be just people flowing in and this gym's going to take off. Unfortunately, I'll tell you that didn't happen because we opened right in 2008, our first location.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was right when, the economy kind of went off a cliff there.
Mhm.
So it was a struggle, but we persevered and we just grinded for a few years till finally really get that business off the ground. And then from there, we were able to open a second location. Now, during this time, I was still working a corporate W-2 job. So
Mhm.
was my wife. But eventually we got to the point where she left her career to really that why of, when we wanted to start a family and kind of
Mhm.
why we opened a business. We had our first kid, and then my son. And then at that point in time, she was able to leave her career. We had successful now 2 locations and to have that financial freedom. I, though, kind of pivoted and went back into the corporate world. I stayed with my W-2 job and kind of focused. Now we had a business, successful business that my wife was running. And then I went into the corporate world as my kids were starting to grow. Fast forward 10 years, I kind of lost track of that why of why we opened the business, which was for freedom of time when we started a family. We were able to achieve some financial freedom there, but I really, in my corporate world, W-2 job, I was in the consultant position. I was traveling a lot. And it was about 2018 when I kind of said to my wife, I want to get back being around the family more. Like that was why we opened a business. And I kind of got away from that. And that's, I know we talk about the why, but that's really
Yeah.
what made that transition for me into real estate. And the reason I kind of pivoted to real estate was for 2 things. It was diversification of our own investments,
Yeah.
personal investments. And when we looked out there, a lot of business owners that I knew through that franchise space, whether it was in the fitness world or just other business owners, insurance brokers that I worked with, they had a common theme amongst their investments. They all owned real estate. They either owned real estate, they invested in this thing called syndications. I had no idea what that was. Or, they owned a lot of those shopping centers or commercial properties that their businesses were in. And talking to them really made me go, that's the avenue I want to pursue. I think I can get passive income there to allow me to leave my corporate job and then grow that freedom of time or have that freedom of time with my family.
Yeah.
2019, I dove in almost head first. We bought our first property and it kind of scaled from there. I was, to be honest, not looking to have a business out of it. It was just for me to invest personally and build a rental portfolio to basically take care of my W-2 income and grow it from there. But year one, it was single family properties, and then it was multifamily properties. And then it just kind of grew from there, where all of a sudden I was like, okay, we're scaling. I don't have capital, or the capital partners that I had out there, kind of tapped out. That's where it started getting into larger multifamily and raising capital and bringing in larger property or partners. And that's kind of what turned into now Summit Capital. We've been able to turn it into a business where we can go out and identify and locate some properties and help partners, business owners, busy working for professionals invest in real estate.
All right. Yeah, I love that. I love the journey. I love the story. And since you talk so much about the why, let's just, dive a little deeper there really quickly.
Sure.
So, if you had to crystallize it down, what is your why right now?
Yeah, for sure. The why right now, it's kind of 2 things. It's still, for me, family's still the number one, where, when we look at decisions and investments we're going to take on or invest in, whether it's personally or through our company, we want to make sure that that family aspect, whether it's our investment partners or for me personally, is not going to take me away from that. Freedom of time and having that is a big priority.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
second kind of why for me is going to be our investors. And I kind of have a soft spot, right, for small business owners. And that's really a large part of our investor base is going to be those investors because they love what they do. Like they might work in their small business. And I know franchise gym owners out there, and they're not really looking like, I want to own real estate, but just like any other employee at a W-2 job, they got to plan for retirement. They got to plan, for their maybe financial freedom or to have some additional income. So it's educating those busy professionals, business owners, and how can I provide an opportunity or help them maybe achieve that, or at least invest for their future. So that's kind of where my passion and why is right now.
Love it. I love it. Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think you got a great story, W-2 to fitness franchises, back to a W-2, and then multifamily. Amazing journey there. But
it's left turn, right turn, left turn here, but I got to it eventually.
To be honest, I mean, you may look at it as left turn, right turn, left turn, but that's how most people go through life. It's
Yeah.
You do something, it starts working or doesn't work, and there's a lot of pivots in life. So life isn't linear. Life is very much pivot, churn, pivot, churn, pivot, churn. But as much as we don't want to make it linear, it's quite a bit like your journey. So let's dive into one of the properties you've done. So pick your first or your favorite and tell us a little bit about one of the deals you guys have done.
Yeah, one of our first deals that we did kind of larger scale with a nice investor base, it was actually like a mixed use property where it was apartments and some commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was a great one to kind of cut your teeth on, just from a standpoint of, I like to learn from every experience and learn, whether it's an investment, it could be, business, whatever it is. In my corporate career at the time, I never look at anything as a failure. It's always an opportunity to learn and get better. And for my first deal, it was a learning experience. The first larger one that was going to kind of be the main group on or the main partner in that one to run it.
Mm-hmm.
And what the biggest takeaway for me on that property, it's great now, it does phenomenal. But at the time, we want to present our investors, or I was learning to, it's an opportunity that I'm presenting to an investor. And I had the mindset at that time of, hey, you're helping me out by investing in this. And you hear that a lot where people are like, that mindset of, oh, I'm asking for money. Wait a minute, I'm not asking for money. But at the time, that's what I felt. That's how I felt of, oh, these people are doing me a favor. And then how I was being like bending to what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And that was the challenge where it almost cost us the deal, because we had potential capital partners pull out, because I wasn't just saying, this is the deal, this is the potential returns, here's an opportunity for you. We think, it's going to be a great partnership. It was, what do you want? How can I make it easier for you? Sure, I'll give this up. We'll do this. And you realize, wait a minute, the other partners other investors weren't necessarily happy with that.
Yeah.
That was the biggest learning experience for me and takeaway. It helped kind of shift my mindset on these larger deals. Because prior to that, it was, smaller partners. We've done a ton of JV deals. It was more people in the network that I've worked with before and invested with. So it was an easier relationship there, and we were comfortable working together. This project was, hey, we got to bring in a lot of outside capital and investors, and it's more on my own there. So I think there was a little insecurity in my part, but it was a great learning experience. And I just we learned on that deal, and as we move forward.
Yeah. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about, our first syndication, and, somewhere along the line, I had the same realization. I had kind of like the same progression where I was thinking, okay, I'm asking people for money to help me. I'm asking for people for money to help my dream out and help me to get out of my W-2. And that's what my why was at the time. But, suddenly it clicked. I remember talking with one person that invested with us, and they were just so gracious and thankful. And thanks for giving me this opportunity. I've been waiting for, somebody that could help me invest in multifamily. And this is so awesome. And that was just like the little mindset shift that I needed. I'm like, wow, she's thanking me. I'm here trying to, she's thanking me for, investing $100,000 in my deal. Okay. And that was the first time it clicked for me that this is a good opportunity for other people. And I love, since I made that mindset shift, a lot of things became easier. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no, of course. And it leads like that abundance mindset too of, hey, there's opportunity for everyone out there. And just like you, we have an investor in that deal who's invested with me prior, who came into it, but he get the emails like, I thank you to be a part of this deal, to give me the opportunity to invest in it. And again, I wasn't thinking, I was like, I thought this guy was doing me a favor. And he looks at it as, oh my gosh, I didn't think you would allow me to come in on this investment. And again, it helped change that mindset moving forward, that we can help other people. We're presenting opportunities for others out there to hopefully help them achieve whatever their why is, whether it's financial freedom, leaving a W-2, et cetera.
Yeah. And it's a big difference once you make that switch. I love it. So last question, what's next for you?
Yeah, we're right now, again, as I mentioned, my corporate background was a lot of in learning and development. I did a lot of facilitating and teaching. And now in this role and being part of our real estate company is, as I mentioned, I love helping other small business owners as a way for them to invest and diversify, because a lot of them, they invest in their business. They put money back into the business. And unfortunately, sometimes they don't plan for the future and retirement because it's their business. Now, that may not always be there for the next 20 or 30 years. And as small business owners, I know people working corporate jobs, W-2 jobs might have an opportunity like invest in a 401k or stock plans. A lot of small business owners don't. We want to be able to help them provide opportunities. Hey, let's invest in real estate. Or busy working professionals who just say, I'd love to do that. But again, I always hear that I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to, fix a toilet. I don't want to get that. Well, hey, guess what? You can still get the benefits of investing in real estate, but you don't have to do any of that. And you don't have to own just a single family home. You could be, invest in an apartment building. And for us, that's what we're trying to do right now. Our next steps is still looking to acquire properties or partner with other operators out there who might be in other markets, in larger markets, and that we can provide value to, whether it's from construction management, asset management, investor relations, et cetera. So that's kind of our focus right now.
Awesome. Appreciate that. We're going to switch gears a little bit and bring Monika on. Monika, how's it going?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian, for having me on today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you for coming on. This podcast wouldn't be what it is if you didn't come on the podcast. So I appreciate it. Do us all a favor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a new inspiring investor for acquiring apartment complexes.
Yep.
My background is business and nursing. I originally, just like, Todd, I went to college,
Yep.
got a business degree, and then kind of wanted to travel and help people in other countries. And just having a business degree, I didn't feel like I could provide much help for that. And somehow I ended up going back to school to become a registered nurse.
Okay.
So I did do that for 10 years. I still have my RN license, but I've always wanted to own real estate.
Yeah.
So how I got into multifamily is that I was last year saving up to start to buy duplexes, triplexes, things like that. And then I sort of came across information about syndicated real estate investing. And that was a game changer for me. Just knowing I have family and friends who are in the multifamily, duplex, triplex space. And it's, just the work and effort that they were putting into that. And I felt like if I could use that same energy, that same hard work and do it on a bigger scale, I think that I would be able to help a lot more people.
Yeah.
And it ties into a lot of my why, which I know we'll talk about.
Well, you know what? Since you brought it up, why don't we just dive into your why? Tell us all about it.
I currently work as a project manager for a research company, and I would still help out at hospitals that were in need on the weekend as a nurse. And so I was working 2 full-time jobs. I wanted to, again, save for buying those complex or the duplexes. And I also wanted to pay off student loan debt. And then I got to thinking, like, after I pay all this off, I'm not going to have any money left. So it really became something that I wanted to do for my family. My mom has got about maybe 10 years left to work. And I really want to help her retirement be smooth. She sacrificed so much for me and my siblings as a single mother. And I just want to make sure that I'm able to provide comfort for her and security. And then also for my future family. When I have my own children, I want to be able to be a part of their lives and be there for them. And I think that level of owning apartment complexes will definitely bring financial freedom. I have a friend, she's a principal of a school. And our goal was to always build better schools in our communities. And so that is something that we also want to do, is where I purchase these complexes is to build better school systems. Yeah.
And that's so important. I love, one thing that I noticed is, everything you said is about giving, about helping other people. And I think that speaks volumes about who you are. So hopefully we can do a little bit to help you out today and, get you on that path to helping lots and lots and lots of people. So here's my favorite part of the show. And I've said this many times. I get to sit back and, listen. Monika, we got Todd on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Todd, so it was something interesting you said about your first deal was sort of like a mixed deal. Did you intend for it to be that way? Or were you originally searching for an apartment complex to invest in, or that's just kind of the way things sort of fell for you and your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Monica. It wasn't. We weren't looking for necessarily a mixed use property like that had commercial store frontage on it. We were searching in the market for, multifamily. The story behind it was, and it kind of goes to when I talk about this a lot about networking and building relationships in your market, is we had another property in literally the same town where this apartment building was, just up the street. And through owning that building and networking with other owners or brokers in that market, the gentleman who purchased, there was an old bank next to this building that they were purchasing and repurposing, and just started conversation with them. One day we were out at the property, and he mentioned, "Hey, I own an apartment building down here that they're looking to sell. Would you happen to be interested in it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And when they told me the building, I was like, absolutely. Like, I knew the building in that market. We were there, and we pretty much jumped on it right away. We were able to get it within a day or so of them trying to list it or float it out there. So yes, to your point though, I wasn't necessarily searching for that or for a mixed use, but the opportunity arose through just happen to have connections and always communicating in my market, and we were able to acquire that building.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I did look you up on LinkedIn, Todd, and sorry I stalked you a little bit, and I saw that you're in Pennsylvania.
I am, yes.
So do you primarily stick with that market, or do you sort of open yourself up to some of the more other emerging markets? Because I know right now a lot of investors are pretty heavy in Dallas and Houston, Austin, and then also the Carolinas. So I'm curious as to your future business plans. Are you going to stick with Pennsylvania, or are you open to other markets?
Yeah, we are definitely open to other markets. So, you hear that, right? The Northeast, those get out, population's migrating south, and that's true. But I also say, look at, if you're in a market that it's not a hot market, or it's not that market everybody's going to, right? There's going to be sub-markets that could fit criteria that investors want to invest in. And that's, for us, a sub-market in Pennsylvania is the Lehigh Valley, which is kind of, an hour north of Philly, an hour west of New York. And that market is an emerging market. It has population growth. It's expected over the next 10 years. You're getting over 50,000 growth in population. It's a logistics hub. It's a medical business hub. So there's a lot of industry and universities and healthcare here. It's an actual growing market up in Pennsylvania or the Northeast. For us, that was an opportunity to invest in. We wanted to look in that market and build relationships in that market, but we're also not saying, hey, this is all where we're going to invest. We are looking in other markets, and specifically through partnerships, where we're building partnerships with other operators or investors who have a presence there, that we go, hey, we want to get in that market, but it's going to be very hard for me to kick down that door because there's already experienced and established operators there, whether it's like a market we're doing right now is Columbus, Ohio. And so what we're going to do is we're going to focus with other partners out there, and we're going to provide value, whether it's through acquisitions, asset management, or our contacts through construction management. We might be able to provide that value. So that's how we'll get in those markets, because it's going to be very hard for us. Not saying it can't be done, and that's going to probably be part of our future growth. But for right now, that's our plan for expansion into those markets.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities. I mean, real estate is very local. And if you know your local market, if you know the local area, I mean, Philly or Pennsylvania might not be like the hottest place nationwide to invest right now. But if you know it, you can find those areas that are growing, that are thriving, So, I mean, as a state, it may be losing population to, places like, I don't know, North Carolina, where you live, Monica, and Florida. But internal to that state, there's always little pockets that are great to invest in. So yeah, one point, always look in your backyard first. And Todd, I think you're doing it the smart way, finding operators that know the other markets and partnering with them.
Todd, I'm from Toledo, Ohio. And
Get
so
out.
one of my markets is going to be Ohio. Well, not all of Ohio, but, but like Columbus, Cleveland. I know those, Ohio State. I love Ohio State. So Cincinnati, those are great places. So it's so interesting you brought that up because everybody is in, the Dallas, Houston, West Palm Beach, Orlando, those areas. And so just like yourself, I was looking for those submarkets because it is hard to break in and to build those relationships with brokers. So, you're in a good spot because Columbus is definitely growing and lots of business coming in the Columbus and Cincinnati area as well.
For sure. Yeah. And that's what we try to look at, right? You try to look at some of those markets where I don't want to say you're shying away from competition because that's not in my DNA, but if there's an opportunity there, and again, we look for markets too that might not be in my home market, as Brian said, but we have maybe some relationships there. And Columbus is one of those. We have already some existing relationships, and through my corporate experience and my partners has relationships out there. So that's what we want to try to cultivate and say, okay, there's where we can get our foot in the door. Once we get our foot in the door, that's all I need. Just let us get our foot in the door, and then we're going to go from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And incidentally, my last acquisition was in Akron, Ohio. And kind of exactly what I said is, Akron as a whole may not be a great place to invest, but there are pockets inside Akron. And I think we probably, got some of the best properties on the best street and the best neighborhood in Akron. And so far they're doing extremely well. So
that's great.
All right, Monika, back to you. What other questions do you have?
That was my most, I guess, as a new investor and trying to grow my company is picking a market and not being afraid to, again, because I'm from Ohio. I know all of Ohio very well. And one of my first steps is trying to build those relationships with investors and sponsors as well, being a newer company, needing that sponsorship. And so I was kind of afraid to pick some markets in Ohio because I know some people who are willing to sponsor want those, more popular markets. So I think something that Todd said today is really encouraging is that, kind of stick with what and not be afraid to pick that market that others aren't necessarily heavily invested in. So I'm glad I got to see you and meet you today, Todd, because it's really inspiring and encouraging because I had some doubts and some fears before this call today.
No, don't let those fears hold you back. I mean, that's the biggest thing that holds people back. And what you just said, you're in North Carolina, and whether it's Toledo or Columbus or those markets, you can build relationships in your local market. And that's kind of what we've done here too, that will open doors in, let's say, Ohio or some other market. Because what I found too, brokers here, like in my market, they know other brokers or they worked with other brokers or have contacts in other markets. If you can provide value in your market, but then let them know, hey, I'm really trying to get into Toledo or Columbus, they may have contacts and can help introduce you in that market to build some credibility. And then the flip side is, what we've done to kind of get in with those brokers and strengthen those relationships is we've been able to connect brokers to potential buyers and other investors who are interested in the properties, maybe in my market or in that other market. They don't fit my criteria, but I know somebody who it will. Hey, Brian, here's a 250 unit over here. It's not in our criteria, but maybe it's Brian's. But by connecting the broker to a potential buyer, they see value in that. And then they're going to be more open to you, maybe getting you a deal or making another introduction in that market in Ohio, saying, hey, Monika helped connect me with a potential buyer. Her network's pretty large. Why don't you guys connect and talk? And that can be an opportunity for you as well. Just as you're trying to break into a market, but you're down in North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. He's talking about an approach where you always add value. And I mean, I was talking with another syndicator yesterday, went and met him in his office and we were chatting. And one thing that impressed me about him is he did the same thing with me. He's like, hey, we look at a lot of properties, what's your criteria? He asked me that question. He's like, what's your criteria? He's like, okay, so if something comes across my desk that doesn't meet our criteria, but it's in your box, I'm happy to forward it to you. I'm happy to make that relationship. And, if you have that attitude of trying to always add value, it's like the formula for a magic potion, I guess. Maybe I'm using that because my kids were watching Harry Potter the other day, but it's like the formula for the magic potion where, you put a little bit of this and a little bit of that in there and you get amazing results. So
And like I said, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be in a month or 3 months, but if you continue to cultivate those relationships and try to provide that value with the broker, it'll eventually lead to something. So those small steps create larger action, it creates larger results down the road. I mean, we just had out of the blue a text message the other day from a broker we built the relationship with in our market. And we've purchased some properties from him, but also helped connect him to from other buyers. And he was out at NMHC and we got a text. He's like, hey, I spoke to so-and-so and he spoke very highly of you, said you guys might be looking in this market. I can connect you. I'm out here. So again, just by building those relationships, you never know who's going to then, they're out at a conference talking to someone. Oh, I'm in this market. He's like, oh, I know, I have some potential buyers or some investors that are looking in there. Why don't you guys connect? And that's how a potential deal can come forward.
Yeah. I was talking to Brandon Turner very briefly. He was keynote speaker at a conference that I went to. And what I noticed is that he was at all of the networking events. I mean, he stayed for the entire conference. And, most keynote speakers at conferences show up for the keynote, maybe hang around an hour or two after if they have something to sell, and then take off. I noticed that through the 3-day conference, he was there. He was in the networking spaces. He was the first one there and the last one to leave. And I asked him about it. I'm like, Brandon, you've got a lot of good stuff going on. I mean, you've kind of made it. Why are you here? And I asked him that question, and his answer was, you never know. It's exactly what Todd said. You never know when you're going to meet a person that's going to help you take your business to the next level. It's like, I'm here, I'm at the conference, there might be somebody here. He pointed to his business partner and said, I met him at such and such conference 2 years ago. He's like, I don't know. I might meet somebody here that's going to help me take my business to the next level. And, a lot of it's, you never know at the time. Like when I come home from conferences and my wife asks me, so how was it? I'm like, we'll find out in about 6 months, but that's always the answer. Yeah,
exactly.
No. Well, cool. Monika, any other burning questions or struggles you're going through right now?
I guess my question to both of you is, do you feel that the way that the interest rates and things are changing, is that like a worry or a fear, or is it impacting your businesses in any way? Or do you still feel that this is right now, I guess, where we're at on the curve with buying and selling of apartment complexes? Is that affecting your business plans currently?
That's a great question, because I think you do have to look at that. And right now that is a big impact. But I also would say don't let it limit you, because if there's a deal out there, even with interest rates, but you have to do your homework, right? You have to understand that and really analyze and underwrite those potential properties or whatever deal you might be looking at. I just wouldn't let it limit you or scare you off from, hey, I'm going to sit on the sideline because interest rates, I keep hearing interest rates are super high. And it could depend on the property you're looking at, whether it's a smaller multifamily where maybe it's a recourse loan versus non-recourse, et cetera. But don't let that limit you of not taking action. Do your work, do your homework out there, and still analyze the deals. Because if you could find one now at potential interest rates that works, think about when interest rates adjust and maybe there's a refinance or something else might happen at that point in time. But just don't let it make you sit on the sideline, is what I would say.
There's a lot of opportunities out there. I have a good friend that texted me the other day saying they're looking at 100 plus unit. I don't remember the unit count. And they're going to get an owner finance. So there are creative ways to do it. I'm involved in 2 deals under contract right now, both of which have a loan assumption. Both have loans that are, start with the number 3, which is absolutely amazing nowadays. And, both in both cases, we're assuming the loan, so you can offer a little higher price, you can be a little more competitive, and you don't have to worry so much about where interest rates are today when you're assuming a 3.5 or 3.4% loan that has, 6 to 8 years left on the term, and that's basic what we're getting on those. And I mean, adding to what Todd said, if a property works today where rates are, I mean, do that refinance in a couple of years, take it to a lower rate, and things are going to work well. The last thing that I'll say about the subject is it also depends on your time frame. I mean, if you look at, buying real estate, 10 years ago, you could have bought anything 10 years ago, turned around, sold it today, and made a lot of money. So the longer your investment horizon is, the less important the interest rate is, the more important the basis is. So if you're buying today at whatever your cost is, 10 years from now you're going to do okay. Assuming it may not be 10 years. 10 years may be a horrible time to sell, but you get the idea. If 10 years from now is a horrible time to sell, you hold it for 12. But I think a lot of it has to do with your horizon and how far ahead you're looking. But your other question, yes, it has affected business a lot.
Yeah,
it has affected what we're buying, where we're buying, and it definitely has had an effect. Anything else we can help you with today?
No, that was pretty
Awesome.
much my major concerns. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I got one last question for each of you. Todd, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
As Monika kind of mentioned, I'm on LinkedIn, on some social platforms there. Instagram, you can find me there, our company Summit Capital, or check if it's real estate related, please go check out our website at summitcap.co. If you want to connect with me about business ventures, talk more about the fitness world, you can check me out at silanceinvestments.com there.
Awesome. All right. And Monika, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yes, absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn as well, Monika House. And then also my company is Ali Rose Investments. My website is aliroseinvest.com. And right now we're primarily looking for partnerships and sponsorship for some future deals.
Awesome. So yeah, anybody interested in talking with either Todd or Monika, figure it out. They gave you the way to get in touch with them. And anyway, guys, thank you very, very much for coming on the show today. Very much appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you, Brian, for having us. Monika, great meeting you.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.